You know, some people out there, when they talk, they fake the funk. You want brutally honest? Well, if you are brutally honest, look no further than CG Ruthless Sports.
CG Ruthless.
CG Ruthless Sports.
CG Ruthless.
If you want your sports talk to be brutally honest, come check out CG.
CG Ruthless.
If you're not watching CG Ruthless, I don't know what to tell you. Representing the Niner Empire.
CG Ruthless.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Josh Putnam. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media platform, dude. Like, I've never thought you were this big, but man, you got some great breakdown videos, man. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I really appreciate that, and thank you very much for having me on. I know a lot of folks come on and they say what a tremendous intro you have, and I would like my name to be counted among them. That intro was amazing, and folks can find me right here on YouTube. Just search Josh Putnam, and my channel should come right up.
Yeah, man. So definitely, man, I've been keeping track of your videos, and I've seen a lot of your breakdown videos of what you were saying, and you were trying to show the plays and all that stuff, and it catches me a little bit. But at first, man, I was like saying, man, like, what do you got for this matchup against the Vikings? Which is the one thing you've been doing your film on? Because I know you always tend to do your film breakdowns from weekly basis or something.
That's right, and I mainly go look, at post game, and I look at what happened after the fact. With the Vikings, I anticipate that they are going to try to attack our secondary.
So they're going to attack the secondary. That's probably the one thing they're probably going to do. But when I look at the Viking secondary, they're a little worse too, because they kind of gave it up a lot of big plays.
That's right, and they haven't stopped the run real well either, and that is, of course, a strength of the 49ers. So I do like the matchup.
Yeah, the matchup kind of does seem like a shootout, don't you think, or no?
Yeah, it could definitely be a shootout.
So, which is one thing that the Niners have improved the last two games that caught your attention? Because I've been watching your films a little here and there, but I mean, there's a lot that I'm probably not aware of that you would probably want to tell the audience about.
Well, I think they kind of went back to the basics, right? They went back to their roots as a running football team, and Shanahan has done a little bit better of a job of sticking to the run, committing to the run. And then using Garoppolo to move the chains, not necessarily throw the ball deep downfield, but convert on those third downs, which is his strength. And that's what a good coach does, right? Play to your players' strengths and minimize their weaknesses for all of your players.
Yeah, that's always been the main thing. And we finally got back to what made us really good to begin with. But it took us until the Monday Night Football thing. So either Shanahan was trying to be too cute on those passing plays, but I think the running game is what got us more scarier to begin with. Like that Jaguars game, we had the longest drive in NFL history that hasn't happened since 2000, which was 13 minutes and 5 seconds. Was that an impressive drive? Too bad we just ended up with a field goal.
Oh gosh, the field goal decision. That is something I will be discussing on this week's video. The thing. First of all, you're absolutely right. That drive was extremely impressive, and it did remind me of 2000, but also that 2002 season where we would just go on these monster drives all year long. We had a great year that year as far as really possessing the football, and it looks like this year is kind of shaping up in the same way. As far as the decision to kick at the end, you almost can't go wrong there. You had a great drive and you're on the road and you want to take the points on the road. The thing that I thought was interesting was Shanahan said, well, it turned out we were 2 yards away and he didn't want to go for it with 2 yards to go, which I understand, but I think he was thinking we were 2 yards from the end zone. But when you go back and look, we actually could have got a first down before getting the touchdown. We were only 1 yard away from that first down. I thought he could have gone for it there. but like I said, you can't go wrong either way almost.
Yeah, he could have went aggressive, like fourth and goal at the all you needed was 1 yard for a first down. But I guess he was trying to be too conservative at this point because if I remember correctly, we did it against Arizona. We kept going with these fourth and goal plays, and it didn't pan out. So maybe Shanahan must have just overthinked about it and say, I'll just take the 3 points. What the heck?
Yeah, and in those big moments, Shanahan has shown that he can be conservative. Of course, we all remember, in the Super Bowl, we were going to get the ball right before the half, and he didn't call the timeout, right? And then he let the clock run down, and we didn't end up getting any points. And the same thing happened the week before, right? We were getting the ball against the Rams right before the half, where we could have got the ball, and he didn't call the timeout. Now that time it worked out because the Rams tried for the fake field goal, and I'm not sure if maybe McVay thought he was playing with house money there, but it worked out in our favor then. So it's not always bad to be conservative. Of course, as a fan, yeah, I would like to see him be more aggressive, and especially with the team playing real well. When you're playing real well, it kind of gives you that ability to do that, right?
Yeah, and if you're leaving points behind, man, you're leaving some points that you could have capitalized. Instead of a field goal, you could have got a touchdown out of it. Like during halftime, I think we had a chance to go for a timeout, like you were saying, and we could have at least been able to move it down the field and maybe get a couple shots for a touchdown. But we were able to settle for a field goal. So thankfully, that's what it was. But so I'm hearing this reports that, like, I guess quite a few of these fans are asking Greenlaw and Ford are activated. Can anyone confirm? I think I've heard that D Ford and Dre Greenlaw are actually practicing, so it's a good sign from what I'm hearing.
That's a great sign. And D Ford, he does seem to kind of be able to rise to the occasion in these big games. And against Minnesota on Sunday, this is definitely going to be a big game.
It's a much needed player, especially with our everything against us. Like we were 3-2, 3-5, and then we started going on a 2-game winning streak. When everything's against us, this is where we play our best, and this is where D Ford is really needed at this point. But Dre Greenlaw, even with him coming back, I feel like our defense is getting back on track and it's peaking at the right time. I don't want to sound like a little off, but hey, maybe there's those teams that get hot late in the season. Maybe we're one of those teams, or maybe I'm just overreacting. What do you think?
I don't think you're overreacting at all. I one thing about me, I really love the history of the game, and I draw from that a lot. Not only in my videos, but just when I'm just enjoying the game. And if you remember back to that 89 season, the 88 season, we were I think 5-6, and then we won our last 5 to go 10-6 and win the division and eventually go to the Super Bowl. And you could almost see that playing out here, right? Arizona, they won a big game without their starting quarterback. The Niners are still 2 games behind, I believe. So I'm not sure if it's going to play out that way, but we are seeing the Rams stumbling a little bit. Some of these other wild card playoff contenders are stumbling a little bit, and the Niners are coming on. And if they can keep that going, I think they could definitely enter the playoffs as a hot team.
Yeah, because this is where you can get at a hot time. Like usually in the November and December, this is where you want to play your best football. Like early in the season, it's out the door. Nobody cares. It's just, hey, you got a good start. Can you finish? That's all that matters. But I think with Arizona, it's kind of the same way, but maybe they're a little different this year. But when I look at the Rams, I'm like thinking, man, the Rams are kind of falling off a little bit. Maybe a fresh bye week would have benefited them, but they're going to play Green Bay. So I think Green Bay is going to play better, but we got Minnesota who's actually beat Green Bay. And this is part of the true test for us because sure, we've known the Rams, but then it's the Jaguars. People are just not going to give us enough credit. But playing Minnesota, that might give us a little bit of credit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think so. And, you play who's on your schedule. But the week before that, they played real well against Chicago. I think if we had not had those fumbles by Kittle and Ayuk against Arizona, we definitely could have at least competed to win that game in the end. Then we beat the Rams. Then we beat the Jaguars. Then we beat maybe Minnesota. So now all of a sudden you're talking about 4 out of your last 5 games. And I watched your breakdown video of Arden Key earlier. I was real impressed by that. And the thing with D Ford coming back is when Bosa and Ford are good on the edges like that, that does allow that interior pressure in the middle to get going too. And
It does.
when you can control the line of scrimmage like that, you're going to have a great day on defense.
Yeah, you are, because the part of it is like when you get those two guys, they're going to open up more, and it's going to get the interior to get some more pressure out there. And the fact that Eric Armstead, it hasn't been really quite much of a factor, like except the last few games, but it's going to open more opportunities for him to get to the quarterback. So
Yeah, I agree. And, Armstead has always done his thing kind of quietly, right? He sort of quietly dominates and he doesn't get a lot of credit. And then you kind of wonder, well, geez, what are we paying this guy all this money for? But then you go back and look and you see how he's impacting the game in more subtler ways. And you think, okay, he's definitely doing his part. I can't say that he's not. And Arden Key just compliments him, especially with Javon Kinlaw being injured. I think I want to say it was against the Eagles on that 6-play goal line stand. He had a big pass breakup on that sequence too, where he stuck his big hand out there and got a piece of the ball. So Arden Key, he is contributing. And like I said, if that defensive line gets going, look out.
yeah, that's the thing. If our defensive line can come at a roll, D Ford's coming back and our depth piece is getting stronger. I don't know when Maurice Hurst Jr. is supposed to return, but he's been injured in and out. So if we can get him back, I think our depth piece is looking stronger. Linebacking core, I feel like with Dre Greenlaw coming back, it's going to make this defense a lot better. And yeah, Tommy Huxley got the news. It has been confirmed. So according to what I'm hearing, D Ford has been activated off the injury reserve, which I just posted like a few minutes ago. And then Dre Greenlaw was like a 50-50 because he was in practice. There was no sure thing about the week, but it looks like he's coming to play. And then I'm hearing some news about the Vikings defensive lineman, Everson Griffin. I heard he's getting arrested or something. Like, I guess a mental issue.
Real sad situation there. And, we could talk all we want about how big of a game this is, but of course that man's life is much more important than any game. And I, of course, just hope the best for Everson Griffin. And, he was really struggling this morning, and he at least kind of did have that sense about him to make sure he was asking for help. And as long as he's getting that help, that, in my opinion, is the most important thing. It has to be, right?
Yeah, it does. It's shocking. And then the fact they don't have Danielle Hunter there too. So I know for some of our fans, they're probably saying, oh, we don't have to worry too much. Well, don't sleep on my boy Eric Kendricks. He's from Fresno, so he definitely can make up for the slack, and maybe they use him in blitz package or maybe use him in coverage. So you definitely don't want,
You take a look at Minnesota. They're a team that, although they lost some close ones early, they've kind of transitioned into that ball club that's finding a way to get it done. And that, of course, is a very dangerous opponent when they know how to do it. It means you're absolutely right. They're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, they are, especially with all this circumstances. It's going to be a little tougher, but like you said, the run defense is not good. But if we were able to do what we were able to do, then I think we have no issue. But I don't know. There's a 50-50 that maybe we might have Elijah Mitchell in for this week. I think they were just playing it safe last week because he had a surgical finger surgery and they put some pins on him. So maybe they might just give it another week, or maybe they might play him. What's your thoughts of it? I've heard 50-50 update on Elijah might come back this week.
It's interesting because it's such a coincidence when we're talking about like a pin in his finger. I can't help but sort of think about Russell Wilson, right? He had that injury to his finger, and of course, Pete Carroll called him one of the great healers. I almost wonder if he didn't try to come back a little too quickly. He has not looked like himself these past 2 weeks, and the Seahawks have lost a couple of games in a row now, kind of uncharacteristically, right? And we wouldn't want the same thing to happen for Elijah Mitchell. I agree with you. I think they were being careful with him. With him on the field, he's such a dynamic runner. I talk in my videos. I hope I'm not being a homer or hyping it up too much, but he almost reminds me of Frank Gore, the way he runs. And I know a lot of fans want to see Trey Sermon on the field too. And Sermon, I thought he didn't quite have the yards per carry on Sunday, but he was making what I call an honest effort. And of course, he had that big catch late in the game on that ball. Garoppolo looped over to him. That was a key play late in the game. But I think the offense is more dynamic with Mitchell on the field. And if he can go in a big game like this, that would be a huge benefit for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you're wrong. I mean, Frank Gore had the heart and the patience. The visions were quicker. But when I look at more of Elijah Mitchell, a lot of them were saying he was just like another Raheem Mostert. But I think there's a different style of Mitchell that I've seen. Like I might even go way back. This might sound as a surprise. I'm thinking maybe a Charlie Garner.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, the guy was a speedy guy too, but he had those ways of good visions all the way there too. And plus, he was wearing the same number.
And I said the way Elijah Mitchell is running, it wouldn't surprise me if before long, all of a sudden, he has one of those 200-yard games. And of course, the last 49er running back to have a 200-yard game before Frank Gore was Charlie Garner.
Yeah, and then I guess the another time we had that happen was in the NFC Championship game over Raheem Mostert. But it's kind of been rare to get a 200-yard rusher. But yeah, Charlie Garner was one of those backs, and there's a lot about people who forget about Charlie Garner. Even when he came from the Eagles, we made him into a Pro Bowler, and then I think he had like 2 consecutive 1,000-yard rushing, but he was the one filling in for Garrison Hurst when he was coming off an ACL injury, which took him 2 more years to recover, I think.
Yeah, and the Niners of the day kept Garrison Hurst on the roster, and they were kind of criticized at the time, but then they got credit for sticking with it. Committing to his rehab, keeping around on the team, and then he was able to contribute. We see some of that criticism today with guys like Jalen Hurd, for instance, who was battling through those injuries, and Shanahan kept him on the roster, committed to his rehab. And I know fans were questioning that, but it didn't really cost us any money. He was on his rookie deal. And of course, the most important thing is you want these guys to be healthy, right? Because they have to go live their life after football. So yeah, keep them on the roster, commit to their rehab. And if he can't go, then, at least he gave it his best shot, and he can be at peace with that. And the team can be at peace with that. And so I was okay with that decision.
So you were okay with the possibility of him being out for a 3rd year, but then they made the right move. So when I saw that happen, I'm like, hey, about time, because it's kind of like, I could understand maybe he went for that, miss his entire rookie year, and then the 2nd year is kind of like head scratchy. I'm like, this guy's got to play, man. No offense. You got drafted in the 3rd round to produce, and we don't have patience for you.
No, so and you don't want him taking up, one of those like active game day spots or a spot on the 53. But of course, if he is on IR, he doesn't count against us as the roster spot. So, yeah, in that sense, right, I'm okay with keeping him around, getting him rehabbed. But to your point, yeah, once it becomes clear that he will not be able to continue as a football player or contribute as a football player, as long as we've committed to his health in a fair and honest way, at that point we can, honestly shake hands and say, okay, this didn't work out, but hey, we wish you the best of luck and no hard feelings.
Yeah, no hard feelings, man. It's just you just weren't cutting it, and that's why we drafted a guy in the 7th round to replace Jalen Hurd. Personally, I thought this guy was a better receiver. And to be honest, I guess Jalen Hurd was a running back at Tennessee, and he wanted to switch up the receiver. But it happens, the reason why he didn't get to be a receiver, because they like this other guy, and we drafted him. We happened to get him in the 7th round, which I like to talk about this Juwan Jennings guy. This guy has been ascending since, even though his rookie year he didn't get any opportunities. He just didn't do nothing. But then this offseason, he worked out really good. He got in better shape. He started playing better. So I'm starting to see a lot of improvement. And the way he plays the game, it's feisty and physicality. Like he plays like a dog out there.
Great observation. Totally agree. And if you think back to the beginning of the season, it looked like we were going to have this trio of Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Trent Sherfield. You know, he had that big play in the preseason, and I think Sherfield has that potential to be a little bit more dynamic, but he's kind of fallen off. Now they've kept him on special teams where he's been a contributor, but you're absolutely right. Jennings has moved into that role as the third receiver, and I think it is in large part because of his toughness. In Shanahan's system, you have to be able to block as a wide receiver. I think he recovered that fumble, or I think he did recover that fumble in the first drive of the Jaguars game. Of course, he, got inside the head of some of the Jaguars players and got them to commit a personal foul. That's kind of a throwback from the 90s a little bit, is, where guys would sort of try to get into the head of their opponent and let them commit the penalty that will benefit your team. And Jennings, he was smiling, right? He kept his cool. He was smiling. He took that punch like a man. And thank you. We'll take the 15 yards and the automatic first down.
And the ejection, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely like an ejection was a bonus because if you watch the way he plays at Tennessee, he was a bit feisty, physical. He was a guy that was a dramatic guy, but I think he's changed ever since he went to the NFL. Since we drafted him, I was looking at his backstory of why he was kicked off the football team. And it had to do with the coaching staff and the fact that they weren't committed to winning. And he didn't like that. He wanted this culture to win. He said, "Why are you coaching if you don't care?"
Wow.
And all this stuff. He wanted to be a part of a winning culture, and I don't blame him. But then those incidents kind of concern me. But then you get him in the 7th round because of his slow 40 time and his character. I think you take those chances and roll the dice and hope for the best. He's turned out to be a really solid contributor.
When we had our losing streak, Jerry Rice and Steve Young kind of called out the team a little bit and questioned whether or not we had any dogs on the team. Juwan Jennings is definitely a dog, and I say that in the nicest possible way. He gives that team that attitude and that edge that's kind of been the missing element, and it blended in perfectly on Sunday.
Yeah, that's one thing that Juwan Jennings has possessed. When you look at his highlight, it says dog, and he plays like a dog out there. And he defines the definition of dog, and he plays up to it, and he smiles. So when he smiles, that means he's getting under your skin. Yeah. Does he really get separation? I think he wins contesting catches. I don't know about separation. I think he does enough to separate.
Well, he's definitely done enough for the coaches to feel good about putting him on the field in those passing situations. So whether he's learning to separate or learning to possess the football, as you say, it's going to be fun to watch him grow and develop and see how he fits in with Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. It's kind of a good change of pace, right? It's kind of like, like teams that have that 2 running back system and one's completely different from the other. And it's that good 1-2 punch that kind of change of pace. You look at Debo, you look at Brandon Ayuk, and then you look at Juwan Jennings. I can kind of see where the coaches are going with that.
Yeah, like a physicality type receiver.
Right.
And plus he's 6'3", so he's a lot bigger than the other receivers we got. So you can't complain. I know a lot of our fan base were complaining about why we keep getting these small receivers. They get hurt a lot. They're not effective. They won't be able to make the big catches. But then when we drafted Juwan Jennings, they're like, he's a slow guy. He ain't gonna make the team. That's what they were thinking.
Well, if it was that easy to just go out and get a big, tall receiver, every team would do it, right?
Yeah, we would get ourselves a Kenny Galladay, but that's not the case.
Yeah, but one thing we do know is that with Shanahan, you do have to earn your way onto that field. So if Jennings is on the field, you can rest assured that he has earned his way on.
He definitely did, because he's doing a lot. Like, he's a solid blocker. He's not even asked to catch the ball as much. Like, he'll mostly do a lot of the dirty blocks, and that's what's been helping our run game. And then the surprising factor is Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner has leaped over Wes Dwelly with snaps now. So it's it's kind of surprised me at first. I'm like thinking, man, we're not even using Ross Dwelly as much. It seems to me it looks like Charlie Warner's getting some more opportunities and he's blocking. So I think his blocking is what's kind of giving him more snaps over Dwelly, because Dwelly's more of a catching guy, not quite a blocker.
Yeah, and if we need someone to catch, we have a guy named George Kittle on the team, of course, but I would say that that's the same type of thing, right? If Charlie Warner is getting the snaps, Charlie Warner is the one who has earned his way onto the field, doing the dirty work, the gritty things, the small technical details that, kind of like Armstead, don't always show up on the stat sheet, but then you go and look and you see, oh, he's actually subtly doing the things that it takes to win, the little details that it takes to win.
Yeah, that's the little details, even if it's not talk about. Like majority of our linemen, like they don't get a lot of the recognition because they've been having some terrible outings a little bit here and there. But lately, they've been playing solid lately because they've been running the ball. Tom Compton hasn't got none of the criticism because they've been running the ball a lot. So it's like it's hard to blame it on Tom Compton and Daniel Brunskill and Alex Mack if you're running the ball and Jimmy's just having quick screen passes or whatever he's doing.
Yeah, that's right. And those offensive linemen, they love to run block, and you put them in the position to succeed, right? When they don't have to block for extended periods of time, for long developing routes down the field, you put them in a position to succeed, and you put Garoppolo in a position to succeed too.
Yeah, that's one thing about it. It's like you definitely want to succeed them, but when it's doing a lot of the dirty work, it kind of makes your job a lot easier. For Jimmy Garoppolo, when he has a little time in the pocket, he can find somebody, even if it's a running back or Kyle Juszczyk, it makes it simple that they'll get some of those big plays. You can go to Debo for a short pass, and maybe he'll get you 20-plus yards after the catch, and that's what you need. And Kittle, he'll give you big chunks of yards.
He sure will.
Yeah.
Him, Debo, and Ayuk, and that's another thing we've talked about is when all those pieces are healthy, who do you defend? You can only double team one, maybe two guys, and then someone's going to be one-on-one. Well, that's a really tough decision to make when you got to pick between those three guys.
Yeah, it is. But lately, they've been kind of focused on Debo. And now that it's leading towards Ayuk's kind of taking most of the opportunities. Lately, he's kind of been playing his best football for quite some time. They've been putting him under the doghouse. Beginning of the season, He wasn't playing a lot of snaps. But now, what have you seen the difference with Brandon Ayuk from this game going forward?
Well, the coach has made that statement, that sort of cryptic statement about, they wanted him to commit a little bit more in practice or whatever it was. You got to earn your way onto the field, and whatever it was, he responded real well to that. Right. And, different players are going to respond in different ways to different things. As the head coach, you've got to sort of be that master psychologist, right? And know that, okay, I've got to coddle this player a little bit, but this player I need to be tough on, and this player needs this. And whatever it was they did with Ayuk has worked because he has responded in a big way in that wide receiver role. And what's interesting now that you mention it, we were talking about Jalen Hurd and his role as a running back at Tennessee. I kind of wonder if he was going to have sort of that hybrid role with San Francisco. They cut him a few weeks ago or parted ways with him. And that is kind of when we started to see Debo Samuel transition into that role as kind of a running back in the backfield, isn't it? And that complement to Brandon Ayuk's pass catching ability, it's going to make hard for teams to defend these guys.
Yeah, it is. And the fact that even we didn't have Elijah Mitchell, we were able to use Debo as a running back, and he averaged at least close to 10 yards a carry, and he almost had 100 yards rushing against the Jags. Like, there was this one play where he just almost got untouched and scored a touchdown off that play. I mean, that's the unique part about Debo is if you're going to stop him as a receiver, you better stop him as a running back because he can do a lot more. Like, I know there was players before him. You had the Percy Harvins, you had the Cordero Pattersons, you had the Tavon Austins, those gadget players, but Debo's becoming that trend now. Everybody's talking about that trend because Debo's like that guy. And your thoughts on Debo, since this guy's already asking, like, what's the transition of Debo that kind of caught your attention?
Well, I think you made a really important distinction that, we've seen these kind of dynamic wide receivers before. Of course, Jerry Rice would run those end arounds, but this at least is the first time that I can remember really seeing a wide receiver line up in the running back position in the backfield time after time and consistently getting those snaps. And I saw your preview video last week of the Niners Jags game, and my apologies, I don't remember her name, but the Jags fan you had on, she pointed out that, their run defense had kind of been stepping up in recent weeks. So for the 49ers and Deebo Samuel to be able to do that, at a position that, well, we would think he doesn't play and come and get 10 yards carry, that's phenomenal.
It is. No need to apologize. I know you're a busy man, but yeah, she was putting on some good breakdowns. She had some good credibility for her
Yeah, she's
sources.
great.
Yeah, you wish you had her on her show?
I might have to have her on.
Yeah, and then your thoughts on Ayuk, man. I guess this guy's getting some random questions, but I know you got some good ways to describe him.
No way, that's great. Same thing with Brandon Ayuk. He's been stepping up in that pass catching role. He adds a real dynamic element to the offense. Perfect complement to Deebo Samuel. He has the speed. He has the ability to make spectacular catches. When you're a wide receiver, you have to make your quarterback look good, right? And Brandon Ayuk definitely has the ability to do that. I think of that slant that Garoppolo threw late in the Rams game, and that ball was on Brandon Ayuk in a flash. I mean, that thing just instantly got to him, and Ayuk just made a great catch and ran in stride. He makes it look easy out there.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of stands out about him is like he can catch the ball, but there's some of those yards after the catch that kind of stands out. And then when I look at the difference, I remember during the draft when we picked this guy, there was talks that maybe Green Bay wanted him too, and that's why we made that move. We leaped up a spot from the Vikings, and we did that. Yeah, and that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the draft is kind of an interesting topic, right? Because there's been some big misses, and we can't ignore that. But at the same time, there's been some big successes too, and I would definitely count Ayuk as a big success.
Yeah, he's kind of had his I think the thing that stands out about him is he can really be like your actual number one receiver. But Debo, everybody talks about Debo being that gadget receiver that you would like, but is he kind of like your number one? But he's just getting forced to be number one. I really do see more of Ayuk as that number one guy as the more I see him play and getting those snaps. And I feel like when the game goes on, it definitely puts on confidence, and it helps your group because the receivers like him, as soon as he gets the ball, he feels confident. And when he gets that ball, he's fearless. He plays with no, he doesn't even think about it. When he gets the ball, he's going to make the big play or even make it look easy, like you just said.
Yeah, and it's a good problem to have, having both of those guys and both with that ability to be number one. And, again, I don't want to sound like a homer or like I'm hyping it up too much, but it kind of reminds me of when they had Jerry Rice and John Taylor on the same team. I mean, we should be so lucky, right? And I'm not saying that they're Jerry Rice or John Taylor, but it does kind of, give you that same feeling inside when you have two outstanding receivers that you just know they're going to deliver. You just feel totally comfortable going, yeah, they're going to deliver. It's not going to be a problem because that's how talented they really are.
Yeah, it does. But I guess for one individual, I guess Corey Davis said hello to you, but I guess osmosis disagrees with me or you in that way. Wait, do you think Debo is more of a number one, or you think Ayuk is?
If I had to pick, I guess I would pick Deebo Samuel. But again, it's you've got two guys that have that ability, and that is a tremendous benefit to the offense.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of makes it kind of interesting because I actually projected Ayuk as that number one receiver, but I was wrong, and I thought maybe Debo can't stay healthy. Now everybody's starting to look at what Debo can do. Debo can do everything. Ayuk can't do what Debo does. So Debo is your weapon, and Kittle is your weapon.
Yeah,
your running game is better when you have Kittle. your running game is better when you have Debo. So you can have Kittle blocking, and your running game's going to go good. You can have Debo as your running back, and it's going to happen. Big plays are going to happen. One or the other. It's effective.
That's right. And I agree with you. I think that, the offense really started to click when we did see George Kittle return to the field. And again, not only just in that pass catching role, but his ability as a blocker, just again, whether you run or whether you pass, it makes it hard for teams to defend. The Niners, they just simply have too much talent on the roster.
Yeah, they do. And there's a lot of good talents that we have yet to utilize. Like, I know, like you said, we haven't been using Trey Sermon as much. I know he's not like exactly what Elijah Mitchell is, but he's kind of like that physical back that you could definitely run for those tough yardage. And even as a receiver in the backfield, you just saw what he can showcase. That's one guy we have yet to utilize. Diamador Lenore, if injuries were to come into play, I think he's a really good player. He can be our nickel after Quan Williams is gone.
I agree. I was really impressed with Lenore in the preseason, and he also got some snaps, in those first couple of games in the regular season. And I thought he looked really good. I would personally put him a step above Ambry Thomas. But, of course, a lot can change in those few weeks. They may have, some nagging injuries that we don't know about. Thomas did get some playing time on Sunday. It was a lot of special team snaps, but I agree. I think Lenore is a potential asset to the defense, especially in future seasons. Shanahan, he has in recent weeks committed to developing these guys too, getting them some touches, maybe not as many as people would want, but he is getting them on the field. He's getting them some experience, and that can only be a good thing for the future, right?
Yeah, it could be. And that's what we're hoping for. But like with these cornerbacks, we tend to wait until later rounds. And then, and then I guess Osmosis has a good solid point. We definitely need to be rotating carries with. That's what we need to do is use all our running backs. Whatever one's going to get hotter, let Mitchell rest a little here and there. Like, get him at least up to 15 carries. And if he can't take any more carries, split it between Wilson and Sermon. Let them get at least 5 to 6 carries each. And then that helps the running game. Instead of, I like that we're using Debo as a running back too, but some of them have been concerned that he can get hurt because of all those carries and those wear and tear of them. Like, he's more of a receiver. But when he was interviewed that question, Rich Eisen asked him, what do you like to do better? Would you like to run the ball or catch the ball? And he said, I like to catch the ball because I got more space.
Right.
And that was intriguing. That was intriguing by him.
It makes sense, and I think earlier we were talking about teams that have that real effective 1-2 punch at running back, and it does seem like the Niner backfield is kind of tailor-made for that. Like you say, Mitchell can be your main guy, sort of your more dynamic rusher, but then you bring in Jeff Wilson Jr. and Trey Sermon and kind of give you that more physical aspect of it. And maybe we will see Trey Sermon move into that role, maybe a third down, third and one, goal line back type of a thing. So it will be interesting to see how he fits into this offense, because Kyle did get him, I think it was 10 carries on Sunday. He is getting an opportunity here.
Yeah, and he is. And then Shanahan put it in a press conference that he said he's gotten a lot better. He's improved since the last time he got his chances. So he's just saying because of the pecking order, that's what it was. But it had to do with the practice and all the other stuff. It was the same thing with Ayuk. I guess that's what it was. And that's why maybe we're just too critical as fans, but we do feel like it. But, hey, I guess one person asks you a question. Josh, how do you feel about defensive end Key?
I like him. I like him a lot, especially with, Kinlaw being injured. And of course, D Ford, some injuries on that defensive line. Arden Key has contributed. I saw your breakdown of the sacks he had, and he had the pass breakup earlier in the season, and I've been impressed with him, and I like him. I think he's a good fit on that defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you can even slide them inside for situational downs, which I've seen the Giants done it like in, I think it was 2011 or something. They stacked another end rusher playing inside, and they were able to rush to the quarterback. And that's something we can use in that kind of role. And then Ford should be back Sunday. I think that's the main factor is if we get these guys back, Kirk Cousins does not fare well against pressure. Yes, he's got 21 touchdown passes and 2 picks. We can turn that Kirk Cousins back to old Cousins in no time. All it takes is pressure, consistent pressure. And if we get to him, yep.
We're going to have to. Like I said, I think he will try to go after our corners, but pressure makes anybody human. And our secondary has been playing better lately. Jimmy Ward and Talanoa Hufanga, they seem to really have gotten into a good groove in that defensive backfield. Emmanuel Mosley has played better. And I've been pretty critical of Josh Norman in the early part of the season, but it's undeniable he's contributing, right? He leads the league in forced fumbles, which is outstanding. And after his taunting penalty against Arizona, I was really upset by that. You don't want to do anything to hurt your team. And it was such an unusual situation, getting into an argument with the opposing team's head coach and then fighting with one of your own players. That's something that, really is not going to do you any favors in the eyes of the coaches, especially. But I thought he bounced back real well since then. And with the secondary playing better, if we can get that pressure on Kirk Cousins, we've got a great chance to win the game. A great chance.
Yeah, that's what it was. But I guess with Josh Norman, I was more critical about him. I thought, hey, he doesn't have much left in the tank. He's 33 or 34, going to be at this end of his career. He's not the same player. He was only like a capable, solid backup. But now we're kind of forcing him in because we don't have other quality depth pieces to step in. So we gave this guy maybe above minimum pay or something, which he was getting $2.5 million contract, which was kind of reasonable for him at this point of his career. But then this guy kind of slowly improved. That interception against Chicago was just a ceiling game.
Yep.
So a lot of his forced fumbles, a lot of those turnovers have come into play, and his veteran leadership is no question. Like, he's been the voice before. So I think it took him some time to be the guy because Sherman's gone. So you're gonna need a new voice. Instead of Uncle Sherm, now it's Uncle Norm. Uncle Norm is coming in the building.
Father Time is undefeated, right? It's sort of a fact of life. But some of the most talented players have had great careers at the end of their career because they knew how to use their mind in addition to their physical tools. If any of you've watched that great documentary, The Last Dance, one thing Michael Jordan said was, up until that 98 season, I was able to just rely on all my physical tools. But that year I had to use my mind. And it's kind of the same thing when we had Richard Sherman. You could tell he definitely was at the end of his career. But that 2019 season, he had 8 interceptions, including the playoffs. You cannot ask for a bigger contribution from your starting corner. And we're sort of seeing Josh Norman in that same way. Very similar. He's never had the speed. He uses his mind. He's finding a way to contribute. He's generating turnovers. And like I said, I was critical of his attitude during the Arizona game, but he has bounced back and impressed me. And he's another dog, right? We needed more dogs on the team. He's another dog playing opposite Emmanuel Mosley, Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga. Suddenly, I don't want to face that secondary if I'm a quarterback.
Yeah, that's one thing. And Talanoa Hufanga, like, now you're talking about this guy. He was just a guy that slid in the 5th round because of his 40 time and his injury history. But the more you watch his film, the more you're impressed with his instincts. Like, he can react a lot quicker and all that stuff. So you get this guy in the 5th round. That's kind of impressive. And then he kind of had some slow starts when he first started, but now he's starting to get that instinct, like the way he got at USC. There was a couple key plays he made, like that one pass deflected play from the Rams running back where he hit him. I don't know if it was Sony Michel or Darrell Henderson, whatever player it was, but he made that clean hit and deflected that ball, which was amazing.
I believe it was Henderson, 3rd quarter, right after the Azeez Al-Shaair play. And I think the key words were what you said, clean hit, right? The NFL is moving away from those Ronnie Lott style hits. It's led teams to draft and develop more players like Jimmy Ward that, kind of are more dynamic, less hitters. And then Hafunga comes in and he's a bit of a throwback, right? He delivers those hits, but he knew how to do it in a clean and legal way that wasn't going to get a penalty, but it was definitely a big hit and definitely that attitude you want on the defense. And again, we're seeing the same thing. Speed isn't always so important in football, and it can kind of be surprising. People say, "Oh my gosh, how can you say that?" But we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it play out with Josh Norman. We're seeing it with Talanoa Hufanga. He referenced his 40 time, but he has a knack for knowing where that ball's going to be. It's kind of like how Wayne Gretzky used to say, I don't go to where the puck is, I go to where the puck is going to be. And to me, that's Talanoa Hufanga, right?
Yeah, he's just going to be reading the plays and have his instinct trust itself. So it's like Talanoa Hufanga is just definitely a guy who can just read stuff quickly and make up for his speed. So I look at this guy's film, and it's everything that you look at. So, Josh, how do you feel about Juwan Jennings? You feel like he's ascending, huh? I guess you didn't know about that question.
Yeah, just same type of thing we were talking earlier about, right? He's a dog. Yeah, he brings that attitude that we need on the team. His blocking has been real good. He's earned his way onto the field, and he's sort of a nice change of pace from Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I like having him on the field.
Yeah. So even with Mohamed Sanu maybe coming back pretty soon, do you think is that gonna affect the role of Juwan Jennings, or you think he's still gonna get a snap even though Sanu will be back?
That's a tough question. Obviously it'll be up to the coaches, and the coaches really like Sanu and his veteran leadership. I tend to think, I would tend to trend more towards Jennings, develop that youth, especially since he has found a way to fit in on the field. I don't watch him and go, oh my gosh, he can't get it done, we need Sanu back. I'm not saying that. I feel the opposite, that he's doing a really good job. And while I appreciate Sanu and the other wide receivers definitely like him, we know Ayuk is really good friends with him. He's definitely a piece of the puzzle. If I were making the choice, I would trend with Jennings, but we got to let Shanahan make some of those decisions, right?
Yeah, and you can't go wrong with Sanu because of his veteran experience and the fact that he knows this offense and plays with Shanahan for quite a while. So it kind of makes it hard for a guy like Jennings to beat him out. But Jennings has gotten better with opportunities when you think about it. Like when you need a running game to excel, this is where this is a wide receiver you need to block. This is a guy who's gonna bring his lunch pail and push you. And he's not gonna. He's just gonna play mind games like the way we saw against that Jaguars game. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe he might do it to an opposing team. Maybe he might even do it to Aaron Donald and get him ejected.
And
he might even smile. Yeah. So and the thoughts of it, man. I don't know. Thoughts of Hasty. He's a change of pace back. I don't know. Like the running backs are pretty pecking order. Like, I definitely like a lot of Hufanga's upside, but Jaquiski Tart is our guy, and I think they're going to split the reps, or maybe they might lean towards back Tart. I don't know.
We saw a little bit of that, in Jacksonville, especially late when the Jags were forced to pass, right? And Trevor Lawrence was trying to get a late score. They brought Jaquiski Tart onto the field, and there's going to be those game situations where you need extra defensive backs on the field. So it's definitely not an either or, right? And this is what Bill Walsh used to tell his players too, is there are no backups. Everybody plays, everybody has a role in the team. You be ready to go because you could get called into the game. And whether it's Tart or Hufanga or Sanu or Jennings, they're all going to be able to contribute, and they can all contribute in different ways. And the first half of the season, I didn't really like the coaching. Now all of a sudden I like it.
Yeah, you get criticism. Like, I was feeling the same way. Like, what are we doing? Maybe now it's starting to click in. Now you're getting some players coming back from injuries. Like, okay, I guess when we play the Arizona Cardinals, let's be fair, Jimmy Ward wasn't there. So I guess that explains why we weren't able to. And I know I've been criticism on him a lot, but maybe it's working. Maybe he's starting to pick up what I'm saying about him, and maybe he's taking it up to the field. And I know there's quite a few people who like Ward, and they're kind of telling me to apologize. And I'm saying, I don't know about apologizing. I just want to motivate him. I don't, no harsh feelings, Jimmy Ward. I mean, you may not be my favorite player, but I'm trying to see if you can feel that and take it on the field, which you proved me wrong. And that's fine. I'm good with that. I'm not going to change the way I feel about certain players, but if I feel like he needs to bring that energy like he did against the Rams, then good for him. 2 interceptions? What took you so long? It took me 6 years to see another one.
Right. Well, it's funny because the fan inside of us, sometimes screams, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this or that or whatever? And then the more analytical mind takes a look and says, okay, I see how you're contributing, and it's easy to be critical. It's hard to be positive. And that's one thing I would personally kind of like to see the Niner Empire improve on a little bit. It's tough when you have a 4-game losing streak, and I'm guilty as charged. But for the Niner Empire to be a little bit more positive and support the team would be a real cool thing. And I think, Jimmy Ward, he's an interesting guy because his coverage is so good. He hasn't had the turnovers. He's a player that's grown on me. Earlier in his career, he really struggled with health issues, as a lot of the players did. But now he's gotten healthier. The team has gotten healthier. If we want to look at the injuries like they were bad luck, you say, well, obviously it can't continue forever, right? Statistically, it can't continue forever. And we're sort of seeing that. You mentioned all those players coming back from injury. The team is sort of getting healthier later in the season. It's kind of weird. And they're, especially as they are learning to play as a unit together and really click, the Niners could be a dangerous team down the stretch. And that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'll come on late so I don't. If you already discussed it, how do you feel about Jimmy G and Trey Lance?
Well, Corey, my thoughts on Jimmy G and Trey Lance, after Lance came in during the Arizona game, the first Arizona game, he was sort of pressed into duty as the starter. And I understand he struggled at times. He completed 50% of his passes, I believe only 20% on third down. But, when I looked at him on the field, I didn't get the sense that he was overwhelmed or he thought, oh my gosh, the moment was not too big for him. He looked very comfortable back there in that role. So I am really excited to see what he brings to the 49ers in the future. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's super controversial, of course. The coaches have made the decision to go with Garoppolo. They have also made the decision to go with Trey Lance by trading all those number ones, right? It's if you want Trey Lance to start, congratulations, you've won. He is going to start. It's just a matter of when.
That's just a matter of time, yeah.
It's just a matter of time. And Garoppolo is red hot right now. So I wouldn't be looking to make a change right now. Anything can happen, God forbid, injury-wise or performance-wise. At any moment, Shanahan could decide to make that change. It kind of reminds me a little bit of 2011, right? When we had Alex Smith and we had drafted Colin Kaepernick. Some people thought that Kaepernick would come in and play right away. He sat for the entire 2011 season, and then he sat for the first part of the 2012 season too. It wasn't until Smith was injured that he came in, and it was kind of a natural change, and that worked really well for the team at the time. I know you can't always manufacture or engineer those sort of situations, but it makes sense to me to let Trey sit and learn and watch. I know people feel really strongly that he needs game reps. I think he will get those game reps when it's right for him. And ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to. He's going to start when he's ready to start. I think even if Garoppolo is playing well, right? Because the Niner organization has made that decision that he is the future of the team. So when he's ready, he will be the one to start. In the meantime, as people forget he had a whole year off at North Dakota State. He's very young. He just turned 21 years old. When he's ready, he will play, whether Jimmy's playing poorly or playing well. And I think if it's it's like waiting for Christmas, right? It's the hardest thing in the world. You know how amazing this guy is, what his potential is. We want to see him on the field. We want to see him develop. We want to see him get those reps right away so he can improve. But to have the patience to do it right, and especially if you're the coach, be willing to take that criticism from the fan base to make sure you're doing it right. It has the potential to be beneficial in the long run. I know some people disagree. They think it would be beneficial to now. I just think that the way Garoppolo's playing, it's hard to make that change. I'm okay with letting Trey sit and learn, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, like the way we were hoping for is the situation can be like a Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes type situation, to where Mahomes only played like one full game his rookie year, and then he blew up into the scene his second year. That's what we're hoping for. But now that we're kind of giving Trey Lance a little bit of snaps here and there, everybody's kind of like criticism, like, why are we using him as a gadget player? Why not we just try to get him on the field more? Instead of, I mean, I get that he's mobile and all that stuff, but why not we showcase his arm talent, something that Jimmy can't do? Like maybe in situations we can throw in some deep passes and give it to other receivers that can catch it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. I think, one of the things that stood out to me in the Jaguars game, by giving Deebo Samuel all those runs, Shanahan was committed to getting the ball into the hands of his best playmaker, but being willing to be creative while doing it. And if you're looking for Trey Lance to come and deliver other than just a gadget play, that would be a way he could do it, right? Sort of like we saw in the preseason where he was switching Garoppolo and Lance in and out, and the teams didn't know what to do. Shanahan has since kind of downplayed that and said, that was just preseason. But I wouldn't be surprised if that makes a return maybe in the playoffs, when you can kind of spring it on a team. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it would, because then it catches teams off guard a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't know what to expect. And plus, there's not much film on him. Like there's not really much.
Right.
So like the fact that we're not using him as much, it's kind of a mystery. All the teams are just looking at is how mobile he is. They're not looking at what he can throw the ball or anything like that. Maybe they've seen the limited passes. Like I think he was only attempted like maybe less than 20 passes this season. And there's been some glimpse, like 50% of his passes or something like that.
Well,
but once he works his touch
arm strength. Sorry, we know he has the arm strength, right? I mean, that much is clear. And yeah, it's sort of like in chess, there's this concept of tension between pieces, right? When you have your bishop aimed at your opponent's knight, that bishop has tension on the knight. It's constantly aiming at it, and you're just constantly thinking about it, constantly thinking about it, constantly thinking about it. And then you can surprise him with something else. With Trey Lance coming in, you have him run the ball. And I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in when everyone's least expecting it, and then he throws a bomb down the field. That would be something, and it would take opponents by surprise.
Yeah, because he only got like very limited passes. Most of the plays when they got him out there, they're expecting a run play. So maybe that's the plan. Oh, they're going to use Trey as a runner, not as a thrower. So like in some situations, that's probably what we're going to use him for. But I think later in the season, I think it depends on how we go. If we can get into a wild card spot and then we can catch teams by surprise, maybe there's a play where we can use Trey Lance in a game to where, like, let's say we're getting before halftime and somehow we have maybe a few seconds left and we're in position to throw in a Hail Mary touchdown pass. Let's see if Trey can throw in that deep ball, and maybe you get a catch from Juwan Jennings like he did in that Tennessee game.
Yep.
Maybe you get something like that. Or Trent Sherfield.
It's an exciting prospect. And I think the future has the potential to be real bright for the 49ers. And it's so funny how quickly, as a fan base, and again, I'm guilty as charged.
Me
Went
too.
from thinking, oh man, the sky is falling to, wow, the future for this organization looks really good. And, there's a saying in football, winning cures everything, right?
It sure does,
We're
because
seeing
losing
that.
just kills it. Yeah, losing kills everything, but winning cures all. Like, there's a cancer when you lose and it doesn't get better, but when you win, it feels great. So you just want to keep it going. And you got to make it a habit. Keep on winning, it's a habit. But if you
Yeah.
keep on losing, it's going to be a bad habit. So,
I think they will win on Sunday. Minnesota, they are definitely a talented team. Don't get me wrong. They are a little bit of a different team once they have to step foot outside of that dome, and they've got to come to our house. And I think, Levi's hasn't always been that home field advantage. Sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. But I think on Sunday it's going to be a real benefit to be playing that game in Levi's Stadium instead of in Minnesota.
yeah. And the fact that we won a Monday Night Football game at home, that's a big statement. Because I was the victim of that Cardinals game because I was out there. I was in
Yeah.
attendance. Man, it was embarrassing. I don't know if anybody even saw the game reaction where I was at the stadium and I was just mad and just walked out like, ah. I was like, man, I was losing it. And I guess a couple of people kind of caught me off guard and say, oh, he was pissed as hell. I was like, what kind of performance was that? But now that we had a dominant fashion, now we got Monday. Now we got this game coming on Minnesota. This is going to mean something. Hey, Panama Queen, she's been coming around. She's a good Niners fan. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with her, right?
If I'm not, I apologize. But one thing that I could say about my channel is the comments I get are always extremely impressive, and I think the interaction between the fans with each other is a real good thing because it's allowing all of this knowledge to be shared, and it's helped me learn a lot about the game.
Yeah, it did. I mean, to be honest with you, I've known you for Facebook for quite a while, and I didn't know you were that big on YouTube. I just thought, man, he seems like one of those regular subscribers. But when I saw your channel, I'm like, dude, you're not even far off from John Chapman's type level. Like, dude, like you're just right around there. Like you're just close to the ladder, and I'm just right down here. But you're actually kind of like you do some great breakdown films, and you show everybody what they did wrong or what's going correctly. And that's something that people don't even recognize. See, there's a lot of Niner YouTubers, including
Yeah.
yourself. Nobody even mentions you. And I'm like surprised. I'm like, I'm guilty as charged because I've known you for maybe about 3 or 4 years around Facebook. And not once I've ever heard your name pop up. And then when I saw your channel, I'm like, holy crap. Like you're in the set, like you kind of post, like you get a good followers, but
Well,
you're not far off from John Chapman.
Thank you. I take that as a tremendous compliment, and you're absolutely right. The Niner Empire is very fortunate to have a big community of content creators, and you got to do it for the love of doing it, right? If you're doing it for the subscribers and whatnot, that all of a sudden then it starts feeling like work. But when you do it, because you love the team and you love the community, yeah, that is a real positive thing. And you're right, from yourself to John Chapman, there are a lot of great content creators. I like the Rombo Sports Show. I know that some people like him, some people don't. But the bottom line is, whatever you're into, there's plenty of places to go and check out and get the content you need. And again, it's how we all learn from it. I'll say something in one of my videos, and someone will comment and say, well, Josh, I know that you said that, but actually what I think what happened was this. And I go, gosh, you're right. Now I've just learned something new about the game, and that is good for Niner Empire as a whole.
Yeah, and I know there's quite a few who don't like Rambo. So this guy's one of them, but I'm pretty sure he'll like your breakdown. I think he likes people with breakdown films. And Panama Quinn's been subscribed to your channel. I think she's been subscribed for a while. She likes how you do your
Thank you so
breakdown.
much. Thank you, Panama.
And
I really appreciate that.
Sean Tuber, you need to check out his breakdown videos. Like, if you guys think that John Chapman is one of those other guys, he's not too far off. Like, he's got some really good breakdowns when it comes to plays, and he shows you what the plays are and what it's supposed to be. And I guess, Corey, sent another $5 chat, and he's asking another question. Like he's asking a question about Eric Armstead.
Yeah, Corey. I think we talked earlier about Armstead is the kind of guy that he doesn't always show up in the stat sheet, right? He doesn't always get the big sack numbers, and I know I for one have been someone to kind of question in the past. We're paying him a lot of money, but I'm not seeing the results statistically. But then you go back and look, and you see that he does a lot of things that win on the line of scrimmage. He is real good with his technique. He dominates inside, and he very subtly changes the game and affects the game. And now I'm on the side of he's worth every penny. I've been real impressed with Armstead. Again, doesn't always show up in the flashiest of ways, but I think to really anchor that D line, we need him on the inside.
No doubt. I cannot disagree on that part. Like he's kind of been an X factor at times, but let's go back in time. Did you think it was the best decision to trade Buckner instead of keeping Armstead? Let's be honest. I think Buckner was a big loss.
That was a big loss, no doubt. It's kind of one of those things where hindsight is 2020. At the time, I could sort of understand the logic behind what they did, right? You save money on the salary cap. It makes it easier for you to pay other pieces, other contributors on your team. You get Javon Kinlaw, who's younger and cheaper, but it didn't quite pan out that way. And sometimes that happens, and that's one of the things we're talking about earlier, right? With the draft, there's been some hits, there's been some misses. Now, I'm not saying Kinlaw's a miss. I think he is actually a good contributor, but there's no question that DeForest Buckner he's just phenomenal. He's maybe even irreplaceable. And he was apparently a big locker room presence too. And that was something the Niners missed for a while after he left the team. So yeah, looking back on that one, I think if we could go back in time, as you say, it probably would be something we would do differently.
Yeah. And the fact that Buckner was able to take double team and still was a factor, that kind of is not easy to replace. But
yeah,
Armstead, you got to give him the better defensive line talent for him to produce like he did before, because before the 2019 season, he had less than 10 sacks, and then he doubled that amount of career for just that one season alone. So do you think we should have given Trent Williams that 6 year this offseason? I mean, to be honest with you, there's not a better tackle out there. I know the money's insane, but if you need to keep one of the best tackles in the game, you got to do whatever it takes. And I know he's getting some votes in the Pro Bowl, so it's popular, I guess, for him to be the best.
He's the highest graded player in the NFL, which I was kind of surprised when I heard that. But, when they initially made the deal, I thought, gosh, that's a lot of money for a player that's not the youngest player in the world. So it definitely was something that was on my mind, but I can't argue with the results. He has produced week in and week out. And he just, if you are trying to take him on one-on-one, he is going to win at the point of attack, and then you can run behind him. And we all know how important that running game is in the Shanahan offense. In my opinion, Trent Williams has been a tremendous asset to this team. We're lucky to have him.
Yeah, we went from Joe Staley. To Trent Williams. How can you make that transition any easier by going from the next Hall of Famer to the next? It's like you don't get it overnight. And all it took was a 3rd and 5th round pick. So to me, that was a steal. And the fact that some of us had thoughts like, oh, he's probably going to test the market elsewhere. No, I guess we got him now, so I guess we could end that doubt. But in my mind, he is one of the better tackles, if not the best, in my opinion. And plus, he comes from the best college, which is the University of Oklahoma, which I'm an Oklahoma bias, so I'm going to say anybody who plays for the OU has got my vote. So Trent Williams, he pretty much has proven to be a leader of that offensive line, and they respect him. So guys like Alex Mack and guys like Trent Williams have earned that leadership quality, and that's what they need for that offensive line. And a guy like Laken Tomlinson, he's been around a while, but he's been getting that recognition, but doesn't get talked about much, and that's fine. But
One
then
of
a
the
guy like
left, sorry, one of the best in the league in my
oh
I cannot. I think very highly of Tomlinson. I see it in the week in and out. He that left side of that line is just tremendous. And when you talk about Alex Mack and you talk about Trent Williams, I think both of those acquisitions say a lot about Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan invests a lot of his time into relationships. And, sometimes you think, well, gosh, is it, it's hard to see immediate benefit from that. But then you get these situations like you're saying. Trent Williams decides he's not going to test the market. He's going to come to San Francisco. Alex Mack, he wanted to come to San Francisco. Players want to come play for Kyle Shanahan. They don't want to, leave Kyle Shanahan. And again, when you have that on your team, that's going to give your team an edge over other teams. How many teams are we seeing right now that are totally dysfunctional? The Chicago Bears, the New York Giants. And then you look at San Francisco, it was rough for a minute, but they were able to weather that storm. And all of a sudden, it looks like they're potentially a very dangerous team. And I think we got to give Shanahan some credit for that, right?
yeah, because he's bringing the guys that's familiar and know the system, so it takes time for them on the fly. But yeah, I guess Panama Queen is asking this is a good question since you already debated about Tomlinson. Should we re-sign him after this season? I think he's been the most reliable offensive lineman. He hasn't missed any time, and that's a big key of our offensive line is having somebody who's available. And I can't think of any other player on the roster who hasn't missed much of the snaps since he's got here is Lincoln Tomlinson. Like this guy, like you may see him on the injury list, but he'll play.
That's an excellent point you just made. That is about his health, right? I believe offensive line is probably the most important position in football. You can't do anything without an offensive line, right? You can't run, you can't pass, you can't do anything. And good offensive line play, while it does rely heavily on good technique, it's all about chemistry. You have to have good chemistry. And if you're in the lineup week in and week out, like Laken Tomlinson is, you're going to have better chemistry that way. You look at the right side of the line where we've had those problems and we're constantly moving guys in and guys out. This year, Shanahan has made the decision. We're going to put Brunskill at right guard, and we're just going to leave him there. And I think that's been a benefit. So, Panama Queen, to answer your question, yes, I think he needs to be a priority re-signing. I know it's not as flashy as, signing like a playmaker or something like that, but getting that offensive line to protect Jimmy Garoppolo, who we know has had some health issues, to protect a very young Trey Lance. He's the future of our franchise. We don't want him taking hits. We need that solid offensive line. And then, of course, the run blocking ability, the staple of the Shanahan offense, getting Elijah Mitchell and those guys involved requires the excellent play that we've been seeing from the offensive line. I think Laken Tomlinson is a priority re-sign.
Yeah, he's definitely is because of the experience. And I know a lot of times he can be beat at times, but he makes up for it. So he definitely gets the respect from the locker room. Yeah. Guys like Trent Williams and quite a few of the other offensive linemen, they respect him. So you want to definitely keep a guy who's been durable and available. You can't find a lot of those players. Like a lot of them get injured.
It's a tough game. It's a brutal sport. It takes a toll on your body. And when you have a player like a Laken Tomlinson or like a Frank Gore, yeah, you want them on your roster, on the field, setting the example for other guys, showing some of the younger guys perhaps how to take care of your body, how to protect your health, how to fight through some of those injuries and play through them. And you keep that chemistry on the field. I think that's invaluable.
It sure is. Man, another good question by her. Like, if we make the playoffs, do we bring Jimmy back? Like, Jimmy Garoppolo has one more year contract. I think the only upside is if we can get something in return and let Trey Lance play, that would be the only way we let Jimmy go because we do have him for another year.
This is the $64,000 question, right? Do we bring Garoppolo back We're aware of some of his limitations. We're also aware that, he can be streaky. And when he gets on these hot streaks, it's really tough to beat him, because when you move the chains, when you convert on third downs, now you're possessing the football and the other team doesn't have the football. You're defending the other team's offense by leaving them on the sideline. Big asset in favor of Jimmy Garoppolo. I know fans are understandably clamoring for Trey Lance. If they make a run deep into the playoffs and Garoppolo plays real well, I think it is going to lead to one of two things. I think either he is going to stay on for another season, another chance for Trey Lance to sit and watch and learn. I know fans want game reps. I understand that. If, on the other hand, he doesn't stay on the roster, I agree with you. He could potentially be a valuable trade target for a lot of teams. How many teams are out there right now absolutely struggling at the quarterback position and really hurting for kind of that key guy under center? How many teams would want that? I think at least a few would want that. How high of a draft pick they're willing to part with? Well, that's all business, right?
It's all business. But
Yeah.
to answer J Moses' question, is this even a question? This guy is a first ballot when it's all said and done, and he's still got plenty of years left in him. So Trent Williams, to me, is a no-brainer. And plus, when you go to the University of Oklahoma, you are a surefire Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I agree. I think Trent Williams is definitely done enough to earn that Hall of Fame nod. And those left tackles that have the really good career, get that recognition and do earn their way into the Hall of Fame. I think Trent Williams is one of those players.
Yeah. And Sean Tuber, to answer your question, he would be a priority. So this is not even a question. The question is how much are we going to pay him? That's the question.
Yeah. And it's about timing too, right? If you sign him before his last year, which with a player like Debo, you probably want to do that, get him that extension. It's just a matter of business. And we're lucky to have, Parag in that front office that's able to sort of navigate these kind of tricky contract situations, because we do have a lot of talent on that roster, and that talent is going to have to get paid. But for the most part, we've been able to do that. And of course, the longer we can keep the band together, the better.
The better, for sure. So I guess for everybody's questions, man, I guess everybody kind of likes what you got to say. And I guess they're probably going to start checking out your breakdowns more often, since I already threw you out there now. So that's a good thing.
Well, I would very humbly appreciate that. I really appreciate you bringing me on your show. It's always great. I love talking football. I could talk football all day, and it's always great to talk with another Niner fan. So, it's just a bonus.
It feels good, and even though the expectation was, I was just hoping maybe for like an hour at the least. But man, you kind of like surpassed the expectation. It's like we can go into a bar and talk football and drink and enjoy a good game, and you'll probably be one of the guys that enjoys it in the seat and high five me during the game, and we'd be like, "Hey, good play," and all that stuff. You seem like the kind of guy that comes around. So everybody. Yeah, you're like the kind of guy I would probably want to high five when we get a touchdown or something.
For sure. We'll have to make that happen someday.
Yeah, maybe I'll come on your show, unless you don't have nothing with StreamYard yet.
Hey, I could always set it up. You brought me on your show. I would love to return that favor and have you on my show. Again, thank you. I appreciate it. I feel humbled, and yeah, you got some great questions coming from your audience too. I love these high level football questions. They just get me going. I love it.
It definitely does. And then the fact that these other audience are not too familiar with you, they're going to start coming around with you more. So they're going to say, well, I want to see what he's got to say about those breakdown films. So, anybody else wants to check out some breakdown films, Josh Putnam is not too far off, man. Like, you can make a debate that him and John Chapman have good breakdowns. But if you want to watch basic breakdown, go check out Josh. He's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just say about my channel real quick is, I like to develop a narrative about how the game plays out. So it's a little bit X's and O's, but it's also, goes into the twists and turns of the game. And I really do like the interaction. I read every comment, and I try to reply to as many as I can. I'm sure that it can be tough sometimes when you get a lot of them, and, but I do make that commitment to the people who are taking the time to watch. I can't appreciate it enough. And the least I can do is read their comments, right?
Yeah, and I guess there's one more question before we get close to the end of the show. But I guess, are you worried about the right tackle spot? And true, Josh and John have good breakdowns. See, she's even put into comparison. And when I did a lot of my homework, I've seen the breakdowns. Like, you do breakdowns basically just showing the film. John Chapman puts himself, but he shows the breakdown too. So you guys are kind of like not far off. It's like I like watching two difference. When I watch you, I'm checking with the film and breakdown. But when I watch John Chapman, he puts on a good basic breakdowns too. So it's like, man, you guys are like two of the. It's kind of like a little similar. Maybe you'll be like the Diet Coke, and he'd be like the Coca-Cola, but you probably have the better flavor.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It really is the good thing about, like I'm saying, about how vast this Niner Empire community has become on social media. If you don't like one guy, you can go watch another guy, and I'm all for that. I encourage you, check out my competition, because again, it all comes back to raising the knowledge, the football knowledge of the Niner Empire. It's what makes us one of the best fan bases, and allows us to enjoy the game, right? If you understand what you're seeing a little bit better, it allows you to enjoy the game better. And I have just been blessed to be able to constantly be learning from other content creators, and that's the least I can do. And I do want to thank Panama Queen. Thank you very much. That's a great compliment. And I can address that right tackle spot if you would like.
Yeah, go ahead.
McGlinchey is another player that has kind of been controversial. His run blocking at times has been real good. His pass blocking last year wasn't as good, but this year was much better. I think. Am I worried? No, I'm not worried. I think he's a fine right tackle. Sometimes when you're playing next to a Hall of Famer like Trent Williams, it can make it tough to live up to that in sort of a weird way. But I think his attitude this season and his approach this season is a big improvement. And I was happy with McGlinchey before he tore his quad. Very painful injury, by the way. Hope he heals up and gets better. And we'll look forward to having him on the team next year.
Oh, so you're like one of those guys that has that soft spot for him. I get it, man. It's all good. I mean, some of them are I'm very critical with him, but hey, we all got different tastes. But I think McGlinchey is a better run blocker, but his pass blocking just has to get better. And I think he is a really good run blocker when it comes down to it.
Yeah. I think, to be clear, I do want to, I try to avoid being negative, but I am willing to take a look with that critical eye. And he did have that tough game against Arizona this year, and JJ Watt. Of course, JJ Watt, does that to everybody. But, outside of that game, I do think he has played better this year. And I think, like I said, I think the biggest difference was his attitude. Last year he did not play well, and he was real defensive about it. This year it seems like he's, with a fresh start, he's kind of changed his approach, changed his attitude, and I think it's been a great benefit to him and the team.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's what makes it more outstanding is you see more of the positive than the negative, and definitely was better when Staley was here. See, she'll agree on your takes. When Staley was there, he was a far different player.
Yeah.
But a lot of different. It's a lot of difference out there. But for everybody else, definitely check out Josh Putnam. He definitely has really good 49ers content. And if you guys want to get back to him, don't you have Twitter or no?
I don't have a Twitter. Sometimes I do go and take a peek. I know there's a big 49er community on Twitter. It can be, kind of clicky at times. You don't want to upset the wrong crowd, right? So
yeah, I get that part too. Like sometimes it could be like a little off, but it could definitely be the easier way for them to get a hold of you, and maybe you can have some schedule to go on their show or they go on your show. Makes it easy for the vibe, and then maybe more people will start to give you the recognition you deserve.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. It really is like sort of a super efficient way to communicate, and once those tweets start going, you see, tweet and then instantly a ton of replies and then a quote tweet of that and a ton of replies. So, the interaction is sort of lightning quick. I'm very happy on YouTube, and if folks want to reach me, they can always come to my YouTube channel and leave a comment, and I will try to reply. I do my best, and I'm very grateful for everybody who wants to watch the breakdown. I do it for fun, and if people want to enjoy that with me, I feel humbled and honored.
Yeah, that's a good thing, man. So I appreciate you on the show. And maybe down the road, we can definitely collaborate, man. But, man, this has been going on for an hour and 24 minutes, man. You surpassed the expectation. Anybody else who hasn't watched the entire interview, it's a must watch. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much for having me on.
No problem, man. And got any final statements before we end the show so you can give the audience what they need to know?
Just search Josh Putnam on YouTube. You'll find my channel, and you'd see our breakdowns. We do a breakdown every week, almost every week. Sometimes I have a hiccup here and there, but 15 out of 16, well, I guess 17 weeks now, we're going to take a look, win or lose. And sometimes when you lose a game, you wonder well, what went wrong? And it helps, right? When you go and look at the film and you see, okay, it sort of helps to understand what happened and how the team can respond to that and improve and make corrections and then go tackle the next week. I think that Sunday, though, we'll be doing a breakdown of the win over the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
Final question. What's your prediction score? And then we're going to end it from here.
I'm going to say 31-21 Niners.
Ooh, 10 points. I have us winning by 3 points, 30-27. I think it's going to be a really close game, but I like your prediction. I like your confidence. And definitely, man, it's going to be a blast. So I will definitely consider in the near future. I'll keep in contact with you, but appreciate you on the show. And as always, CG Ruthless Sports is out and Josh Putnam is out. And as always, go Niners.
Go Niners.
All right, man.